wherever you want to sit up front.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Hello, Chief. Good evening now. Trying to double check. Okay, yeah.
You got a whole stage.
Yeah, it's all yours. Actually, maybe have this.
Yeah, you gotta be pretty close. It's not on the table. Just take it out.
Great. Okay, not this one. Just pictures. Max, nice to meet you. You're good. What do you go to school? Okay, I'll go get him. Yes. So actually, we already have a track that we want to go. You're asking for your and also but for you, I would say start getting involved with organizations that get out to you each type of there are nonpartisan ones that I would recommend so that you really get to see the process. And then you're at it, really get to
all of these seats you just were kind of blocked out, and I think that
very different legislators. It's to do really part of the entire plethora of what campuses want to do. It sounds like we take care of public safety, like the chief right there, and fire department, public works, water, water, and then roads you take care of. Statewide.
Jake.
But
Yes.
Please, I need to figure out. Maybe it might.
you're good. How are you?
around 7:20.
Good to see you.
Check. 1, 2. 1, 2, check. Check. There we go. Good.
I think went outside to see if it was going in there.
All right.
Okay, you put your stuff down. Okay. There's plenty of maybe here. Okay. I want you to meet a young lady. She's a college student. Okay.
My mug too, though.
Oh. Yes. Chief, this is Dr.
I didn't know it well.
They're gonna find their seats.
There's two in my life.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Yes. So this is the way it should look like. Right. That's fine.
Hey Trish, is there a phone number here? Is there a phone number that program? Can you let the program?
Good evening. We're going to begin our program in about 2 minutes. If everyone would please find a seat, and we would invite all the vendors and displayers to come and join in the seated area.
Ready? Okay. Ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Got it.
All right. Likewise.
Father Andrew, can I introduce you? Yes.
Mayor Wu, this is Father Andrew Carr, and he's amazing. He's my pastor. No, he is my pastor, good shepherd for years, and now he's receiving Francis Ministries. This is also Dr. Mitnaul.
Hello.
And this is
Nice to meet you.
he's Chief Sullivan.
Okay, good to see you.
Andrew O'Connor, works for St. Francis Ministries.
So I'll leave you on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So all speakers. I'm not. So you're good to go. Great. Yes.
I'm coming here so I don't get in that picture. I don't need to be in that.
Same monosodium glutamate.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Chief.
I will recognize the life there.
Yeah. No. He'll start talking.
I didn't get no Yeah, over by the table where you walk in. Yeah. There it is. Yes.
Yes.
There any birthday candles in the program? Kevin? Candles?
Wow.
Yes. Yes, sure. Just want you to know you have a little.
That's okay. Very happy.
Thank you.
How are you? I wondered if you remembered me. I was Price Waterhouse one year when she was just. Then we all went to dinner and we had a blast.
My own girl lives in Chicago.
Yeah, Price Water. They told you Price Waterhouse that night. Good to see you. Congratulations.
Hi, Teresa.
Hey, I knew you were going to be here.
You did.
Come in. Doing good. Yeah. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, so are you part of NAMI?
I am. I'm the board treasurer.
You are. You surprised me.
Yeah. Well,
We're not going to let her leave.
yes, I have 2 more years and then they're kicking me off. I have term limits.
Well, that's good.
But they're bringing in a new board member who might take over for me. So that'll be good for you. Somebody pay the bills. David just doesn't want to let me go. So, well, I'll be here hanging around. I'm hanging around.
I go off next year, but I'm so
Okay, so we're good. We go. Everybody's accountable.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I want to begin by welcoming you to this special candlelight ceremony. If you have not already picked up a candle over by the entrance, please go grab one. We hold this candlelight ceremony every year to kick off Mental Illness Awareness Week. Americans have celebrated the first full week of October as Mental Illness Awareness Week since 1990, when NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, lobbied Congress to create this critical awareness event. Tonight we gather not just to illuminate the darkness, but to bring mental illness into the light where it deserves to be. Whether you're here for yourself a loved one, or simply to show your support for those affected, your presence speaks volumes. It's a reminder that no one has to face their mental health challenges alone. Mental illness is often shrouded in silence, but tonight we break that silence. We're here to raise awareness, foster understanding, and to offer hope. The statistics are staggering. 1 in 5 adults in the United States experiences a mental illness in any given year. That's over 50 million people. And the most heartbreaking statistic of all is that suicide is the second leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 34. Each year, over 45,000 people in this country die by suicide. That means every 11 minutes, someone loses their life because they felt that they couldn't go on. Here in Kansas, the numbers are even more alarming. In 2022, nearly 600 Kansans lost their lives to suicide. And the state's age-adjusted suicide rate is significantly higher than the national average, at 20.5 per 100,000 people. Over the past 2 decades, Kansas has seen a 60% increase in suicides, particularly in the rural areas where isolation and stigma and lack of service make seeking help even harder. These numbers and statistics represent real people with real stories. We owe it to them to speak up, to be their voice, and to ensure that their struggles are not in vain. Tonight is about the power of community. No one should face these battles alone, and we're stronger when we come together like this. When we stand as one, we can offer support, lend a listening ear, remind one another that hope exists even on the darkest days. We're not just individuals walking separate paths, we are a community. And when we hold each other up, we all rise together. Tonight, we're also here to educate. Mental illnesses are among the most common health conditions in the United States. Mental illness can range from no to slight impairment to severe impairment. It can be short-term, chronic, or come and go. It's important to understand that serious mental illness is not just a fleeting mood or a temporary sadness. It includes conditions like major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder, and serious conditions that require treatment, care, and most of all, understanding. We must work together to break the stigma around mental illness so that no one feels too ashamed or too afraid to seek the help that they need. It's important to acknowledge that mental illness affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. Help is available, and it's closer than you think. Many resources are represented here tonight. There are services in our community that are ready to support those who are struggling, and the family members and those that love them. NAMI Wichita is dedicated to providing education, support, and advocacy for those living with mental illnesses. Whether it's through support groups, peer education, or other resources, there is always somebody ready to help. As we move forward with this program, I ask that you keep in mind the power of your light tonight. Together, we can bring hope to those in the darkest of places and remind them that they are not alone. So before I bring up our first speaker, I wanted to let you know to please hold any questions that you might have until after all the speakers have presented. We will have a Q&A session afterwards. And so I invite you to hold your questions until then. But I'd like to introduce and invite our Master of Ceremony and keynote speaker, Mayor Lilly Wu, up to the podium. And I want to introduce her. Mayor Lilly Wu was elected mayor of Wichita, Kansas in November 2023 and was sworn in as the city's 103rd mayor on January 8, 2024. Mayor Lilly is the first woman elected to a full term in the largest city in Kansas. She's also the first Asian American mayor in the state of Kansas. She's been a Wichitan since 1993, when her family immigrated from Guatemala. Mayor Lilly is an award-winning television journalist and is a proud alum of the Wichita Public Schools, Wichita High School East, Wichita State University, and the University of Hong Kong. As a mayor, she champions an inclusive vision for the entire city, focused on ensuring public safety, strengthening our economy, and restoring trust in City Hall, and most importantly, building a united community. Please welcome Mayor Wu.
Thank you very much, Laura. Can we give her and the team at NAMI a round of applause? Good evening, everyone. I would like to recognize the elected officials who are here tonight from local, state, school board, or from the state legislature. Can you please stand up and be recognized? It is truly my honor to stand before you tonight at this year's NAMI Candlelight Ceremony. This gathering is more than just a symbol of light and remembrance. It's a powerful testament that we as a community will not turn away from the reality of mental illness. Instead, we choose to comfort with compassion, understanding, and action. Mental illness is a topic that has, for far too long, remained hidden in the shadows. Many of us here know the painful realities that mental illness can bring, whether it has affected us personally or through someone we love. We know the struggle, the silence, and too often the stigma that follows with mental illness. But tonight, we're here to change that narrative. I want to begin by acknowledging the incredible work of NAMI. I have known the work of NAMI from my past profession as a journalist here in our community, and I know the great work you do in trying to bring the community together to understand that mental illness and mental health are topics that we should talk about openly. So thank you for what you do. Your dedication to education, support, and advocacy is transforming lives in Wichita. The resources you provide gives people the tools to navigate what is often an isolating and overwhelming journey. More importantly, you're providing hope. Hope that no one has to walk this path alone. Hope that mental illness does not define who someone is. And hope that with the right support, healing is possible. As your mayor, I am proud to say that the city of Wichita stands with you in this effort. Mental illness affects everyone, young, old, rich, poor. It does not discriminate, and neither should we. Wichita is committed to becoming a city where mental health is treated with the same importance as physical health. We're working tirelessly to ensure that those who need help can access it without barriers, and that those who feel isolated know they're not alone. But first, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the human aspect of this conversation. Behind the statistics that you mentioned and the reports that we hear on the news, there are real stories. We're talking about the young woman who's quietly battling depression while excelling in her career. We're talking about the veteran who for years has struggled with anxiety but never felt comfortable seeking that help. We're talking about that teenager who feels overwhelmed by the pressures of school and social media, yet doesn't know where to turn to for support. Each of these individuals represents someone in our community, a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a family member. And perhaps tonight, some of you here have your own stories. It's important to remember that mental illness does not make someone weak. It does not make someone less deserving of love or opportunity. In fact, facing mental health challenges with courage is one of the greatest acts of strength. We understand that addressing mental health isn't just the responsibility of health professionals. It's something that requires the commitment of all sectors of our community. We know that mental health crises often happen in moments of great stress. In those moments, it's critical that the people responding are equipped to handle the situation with empathy and care. This is about more than just keeping our streets safe. It's about saving lives and treating our most vulnerable citizens with dignity. Our children and teenagers are facing mental health challenges at a higher rate than ever before. With the pressures of social media, academic stress, and sometimes difficult home environments, many young people feel overwhelmed. We believe that by fostering a safe and supportive environment, we can help our young people build resilience and emotional intelligence, skills that will serve them well beyond and into their adulthood. Accessibility to mental health services is one of the most important issues we face. Many people want help but don't know where to start. We're working to change that. We have partnered with local clinics and hospitals to bring community-based mental health services directly to neighborhoods, making sure that care is available where people live and work, and partnering with the folks at Sedgwick County who are responsible with the health department and ComCare. A majority of the initiatives with the city of Wichita that we're currently working on really focus around our unhoused individuals through the creation of the Multi-Agency Center. This center will be a collaboration between the city of Wichita and numerous local agencies, all working together under one roof to provide a wide range of services, including mental health support. The center is designed to be a one-stop resource location where individuals can access comprehensive care, whether they need mental health counseling, substance abuse treatment, or social services that we can help connect them to. The Multi-Agency Center will make it easier for individuals to navigate the often complicated network of services. Instead of being shuffled from one agency to another, people can receive that help and the help they need in one location, in one place. This integrated approach will improve outcomes and make sure that no one falls through the cracks. We know that mental illness is often accompanied by other challenges, like homelessness, unemployment, or addiction. By addressing these issues holistically, we're not only treating symptoms, but helping people rebuild their lives. We hope that the Multi-Agency Center will be a shining example of what can happen when government agencies, nonprofits, and community organizations together work towards a common cause and truly collaborate. We know that education is key to changing the way society views mental illness. By bringing mental health into the public conversation, we're encouraging people to seek help early and see mental health as an integral part of their overall well-being. It's important to have these conversations in the workplace, in churches, and in homes across Wichita. This sparks dialogue among people who might otherwise feel too embarrassed or afraid to speak up. And that's where change begins, with conversations, openness, and understanding. Sadly, we know that mental illness can lead to tragic outcomes, including suicide. The city of Wichita is determined to reduce suicide rates through focused prevention efforts. By addressing issues head-on, we can save lives and give hope to those who feel they've lost it. Tonight, as we light these candles, we remember the loved ones we have lost to mental illness. Their absence leaves a void in hearts, but their memory fuels our determination to ensure that no one else has to face these challenges alone. Each candle represents a life, a story, and a community that stands together And each flame is a symbol of hope. Hope that our efforts will continue to grow, hope that our conversations would lead to action, and hope that one day mental illness will no longer cause for shame or for suffering. Wichita is a city of strength, compassion, and resilience. Together, we can build a future where mental health care is accessible, stigma is eradicated, and every person struggling with mental illness is met with understanding and support. Again, I thank you all for being part of the solution and being part of the community that wraps around our most vulnerable individuals. Thank you for your advocacy, thank you for your courage, and thank you for your commitment to this cause. As we move forward, let us carry this light together and continue fighting for a future that is brighter for all. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Larry Mitnaul. He is a double board certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist and father of 7 children, 8 months old to 16 years old. He has quickly become a trusted voice in helping thousands of parents navigate parenting in the digital age. With expertise in parenting, mental health, and child development, his online school called Be Well Academy equips parents with tools to strengthen parent-child relationships, decrease problem behaviors, and build more peaceful homes. Please welcome Dr. Larry Mitnaul.
Well, thank you, everyone. Really, it truly is an honor. So, and there's much thanks to give. So, to Teresa Carter, who first reached out, Laura Rosenbaum and her great work, NAMI Wichita Board of Directors, Mayor Wu. I mean, it's just incredible hearing about the wonderful things happening in our community, Chief Sullivan, and all of you esteemed guests here. So, as I mentioned, I'm really honored to be here. And originally, I was going to maybe give you just updates in psychiatry and what's new and novel and exciting to work on. But actually, I don't think that moves hearts. That's more, helpful for me and maybe for other psychiatrists. But I was really struck by this vision of the candle and the candlelight and that tiny flame. And so, as that image continued to percolate and kind of linger in my mind, these are the thoughts that I hope you're able to take with you as you leave from our time today. You see, for me, like a candle, psychiatric illness can bring out both incredible power that's able to produce tremendous good, but also those flames can feel overwhelming. And so I think in many ways that portrait of the candle is a perfect balance of delicately demonstrating to us the ability for a flame to be held, somewhat tamed, but directed and put towards a particular noble use. Children immediately grasp the fascination of the flame, and sometimes a little too quickly. I have some parents in the room who know. And we adults are often too aware of how the flame can blossom and grow in an instant when it's met with an accelerant, and it can also diminish and be easily constrained if it's deprived of the elements that keep it going. So clinically, in discussions that I have with kids and families and parents that see me, we're often talking about that tension. We're not always using necessarily the imagery of the flame as I'm describing to you here, but we're talking about that tension. And between, that the flame can both be mighty and a sword, but also something that can feel overwhelming at times. And so in the clinic, I might get to see the heights of human emotion in the child, the teen, the parent, and we're often bonded together in trying to figure out what's their origin story, right? Like, our favorite superheroes, how is that flame, how are we going to help them to manage that flame to be put to great use in their lives? And though I've not had any of my own personal fiery escapes, thankfully, I do recall a combustible moment, so I thought I would just lighten things up and share a personal anecdote. So you have to imagine me as a 10-year-old boy with hair. I know, you're already mind blown. I had a flat top, like many people did back in my day. And also in my room, I happened to have a television with the rabbit ears sticking out of the back. Does anybody remember those? And the UHF, channel clicker there at the top. Well, the picture stopped working, and some things never changed. So my enthusiasm exceeded my skills that day, and I decided I was going to figure this out. Well, it's always a good idea before working with electronic, products to unplug them. But I just watched MacGyver. Clearly, what could go wrong? So I saw 2 straight wires and decided to connect them, because surely this would be the answer. Boom! A jolt of flames and smoke. I felt, tingly sensation at the end of my fingertips, and I ran to our bathroom, and to my great horror, my black-haired flat top had turned gray. I kid you not, I thought that I had permanently zapped all of the melanin from my hair, and I'd be a gray-haired 10-year-old for the rest of my life. Thankfully, it was just dust particles, and everyone survived, and I'm here. So, but in all seriousness, so here are some of the features that really presented themselves to me, and I think hopefully lend a vision for you of things to reflect on, and that help us to not only recognize where we are now, but what positive things there are to look forward to. So 1, a flame requires oxygen. Right? Oxygen is the food source, really, that helps to maintain it. And so again, if we're applying this to psychiatric illness, sometimes in the most depressive episodes, that flame that burns within can feel extinguished. On the opposite side, right, in mania or sometimes ADHD, actually it can feel like maybe there's too much oxygen saturation going on. So what are some of the anchors of things that we can think about that help us as individuals, that can help the people that we see and care for? To find that balance of being able to contain the flame and use it in a productive way. So some of that, in terms of the science, I might not wow and dazzle you with, right? Food. So the research is, what we take in, what we actually use to nourish our own bodies are important for maintaining our own mental health and balance. And so some of the most promising work out there is converging around a couple of things. Again, I'm not going to blow your mind, but protein-rich foods or omega-3 fatty acids. And some of this information actually we're learning and stealing from our neurologic colleagues too, who have had the experience of using a lot of medications and then sometimes finding maybe that's not enough and we have to get to the source. Or we have to look at some of the other underlying things that might be contributing to someone feeling off kilter. Sleep, right? That's another bedrock. We often don't think about sleep as something we consume, but it is an important, nourishing part of what it takes in order to help to get to that healthy place. Screens. So those who have seen me on social media know that's a topic I like to talk about a lot. I promise not to bore you with all the statistics there, but we do know that it can be really important and helpful to moderate our uses, and sometimes, in some cases, just eliminating it altogether, at least for a part of time. Why? To allow us to be more aware. Screens are also something we consume. And so often we're using this paradigm in the clinic. Okay, yes, if I'm given the option between an apple Jolly Rancher and eating an apple, I'll pick the Jolly Rancher. That's just who I am. But it might not be the thing that's best for me. So being aware of what we consume. So that's the oxygen piece. Heat. Another important and crucial element of what it means to be a flame or to be a flame. And so when I think of heat, I think of community. I think of the roaring fire with people standing beside it, roasting marshmallows and telling great stories. And while roasting marshmallows is more of a modern invention, the standing around and sharing stories actually is as old as we are. So it's no surprise that research also bears this out too, that the intentionality that we have around communities of support and building those up, and recognizing how much we mean to each other, and how helpful that can be in plugging in our kids or plugging in other adults who may be struggling with psychiatric illness, is a part of the journey of helping them re-experience and sometimes rekindling that flame from within. I think we're actually surrounded by those flames here. So again, another thank you to everyone who came out today. And then light, right? Another crucial element that you can't talk about things being a flame or a candle without the light that it produces. And so whenever I think of light, I think of things being made visible. So often our adults and kids suffer in silence, fearing that exposure of some of the big feelings and big emotions that come to light, maybe they'll be too big to handle. Right? That might be what their brains are telling them. However, we know that something such as talking about suicide actually doesn't insert a thought that wasn't there before, right? It doesn't create a new idea that didn't exist, but it may actually give permission to allow someone else to share and occupy a space that felt lonely and alone. So working with kids, another piece of light action. Let me go back to the light. So how do we cultivate that? And what are the signs that point to the light that we can see that's oncoming? Well, part of that helps us to look forward to a future and to broadcast that for the kids and adults that we see is research and innovation. So there is a lot to be hopeful for in that area of our lives. I often like to describe the brain to people as like a complex city, right? That there are the structures, right, which form that's what you see when you're driving through the town and passing over the highway. There's the electrical grid, that keeps the lights on, but then there's also kind of the chemical structure. The brain is similarly wired and built in such a way. And what's encouraging is that on each of those levels, both the structure and how we understand the brain, and the techniques that we can apply to helping people persist through and to find victory through, the depression or anxiety or mania that they might be struggling through. At each of these levels, there's really promising and really exciting research going on in those domains. We're now leveraging technology in really incredible ways, building out communities that otherwise would have been hard to find. I love hearing the stories of the teenagers that I see who are on the spectrum and struggle with forming relationships. And instantaneously, they're able to plug into other like-minded young people who share the amazing uniqueness that they might feel alone in having in the school that they inhabit. So, the heat, the oxygen, the light. I hope that in our time together tonight, we can reflect on those three parts and think about how do we help drive people towards the light. I think in this room, as I've mentioned several times already, I think we have another beacon, other light bearers in this room, which are the people here that care enough about mental illness, that care enough about the community that, it could be rooting on the Chiefs, but they instead said, you know what, tonight is the night we take a stand and combine our voices in a collective, we see you, you're being seen, and we care about how you're doing. So here's what I want you to take with you. Be encouraged. If you are one of those candles, which you are, because you're here, lighting the way. If you feel like your flame has been extinguished, get close. Get close to the source of the heat and lean in and look for the light, the oxygen, the heat. And if you feel a flame, do not fear letting someone know, because the good news is that there is hope, and actually, you were made to shine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitnaul. Really appreciate your message and your keynote today. I will warn, it is Fire Prevention Week. So for my firefighting friends, I am being mindful that I'm trying to remind everyone of fire safety as well. But again, thank you very much, Dr. Mitnaul. At this time, I would like to invite Esther Granados to the stage. Esther Granados has been a clinical social worker for the past 13 years. She graduated with both her bachelor's and master's degrees from Wichita State University. Go Shops, yes. Esther has worked with various populations but has found her passion in suicide prevention. Esther is honored to share her brother's story and honor his memory today. Esther?
My name is Esther Granados.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay.
I'm a suicide loss survivor.
Anyway, suicide. On September 2nd, 2015. His name was Vincent. His nickname was Boy, so don't be confused when I call him Boy in my stories. When I describe my brother, I use words like kind, loving, hilarious, thoughtful, beautiful, motivated, silly, jokester, things like that. I don't use words like sad, depressed, or suicidal. My brother's battle with suicide was a long life one. I remember being in high school and being called over to the grade school to help it when he was struggling. And even though those may have been his symptoms of his mental health, I know that his life is not defined by those symptoms. I don't want to define my brother by his mental health. He's more than what his mental health concerns were. So instead, I just want to kind of focus on who he was. And he was a fun-loving, caring guy. He's a jokester. One time, they went to a golf tournament, him and my brother-in-law, and they posed in front of a new car and posted on Facebook and said, "Hey, boy won a new car," and everyone believed it. He didn't tell everybody, "Hey, I didn't know it actually won a new car." He was spontaneous, and he loved animals. He loved animals so much. He had ducks, he had dogs, and he was living with me, and I came home early from work, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I live here. What are you doing?" And he's like, "I got a dog today." And so then up came this giant German Shepherd, and so we had a dog. He was brave, and he was not scared to show his emotions. In 2013, him and my sister went to Wesley Hospital, and we were there visiting a friend and her new baby. And as we were waiting for the elevator, my brother started crying, started shaking, and these people walked off the elevator, and we were like, "What's happening? What's going on? I don't understand what's happening." And he couldn't talk. And so finally one of the ladies that came off of the elevator was like, "Well, does he like rodeos?" And we're like, "Yeah, he loves rodeos. He's a bullfighter. That's what he wants to do. That's what he does in his spare time." And she's like, "Oh, this guy right here that I'm with is the bullfighter of the year." And so my brother had been that ecstatic to meet his hero. And he wasn't scared to let people see him. "Hey, I'm so excited and crying." He did. He was okay being who he was. And even though his mental health symptoms are not how I see my brother's memory, I know that it can be really hard to care for someone with mental health concerns. And so I just wanted to dispel a couple of myths. I know Dr. Mitnaul dispelled one too. And so the first one was asking about suicidal ideations. When we ask about suicidal ideations, we're absolutely not planting that seed. Rather, we are giving them that space, that time to be able to talk about something that they're going through. Another myth that there is that if someone really wants to die by suicide, there's nothing that we can do about it. And research has actually showed us that that's wrong. So, Golden Gate Bridge in California, lots of folks go there to die by suicide. And for a long time, there was no safety measures for it. There was no barriers. Because people kind of have this idea that if I stop them from jumping off this bridge, they're just going to go find another bridge to jump off of, or something like that. And so UC Berkeley did a study, and what they found was, UC Berkeley did a study, and what they found was they followed about 500 people who had been stopped from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge for about 25 years. And after 25 years, what they found was that over 90% of them were either still alive or had died by some other method of suicide. So car accident, illness, or things like that. So again, a true suicidal crisis is very time limited. If we're going through it, or a loved one is going through it, it can feel like it's going to last forever. But in reality, they are very time limited, and we can stop suicide. We can have those conversations about gun safety, things like that. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was how I support somebody who is having those thoughts. And one of those things that I always bring up is validation. So validation is not that I like it, that I agree with it, or that that's how I would feel. Validation is just saying, I know it is what it is. And so when someone is having suicidal thoughts, it's okay for them to have suicidal thoughts. Now, I don't want them to. I don't like that they're having suicidal thoughts, and I for sure do not want them to act on them. But they're having them, and it's very real. And it's okay to say, hey, I know that you're having these suicidal thoughts. Because once we get past trying to change that reality, we can get to the conversation of how do I keep you safe? What does that look like for you? And to really encourage you guys to, if you are talking to someone who's having some mental health concerns, be able to validate that and say, it's very real for them. And so that is what they're going through. And so, I really appreciate you guys letting me come up here, share my story, or share my brother's story with it. Like I said, I know that my brother will not be defined by his death, but rather how he lived so much in his 22 short years. Boy was genuine, he was selfless, he was brave, he was lovable, strong, fun, special, spontaneous, daring, kind, not only to other people, but especially to animals. He was unafraid to express his emotions, and I really thank you guys for allowing me to share that.
At this time, I'd like to invite Mayor Wu and Dr. Mitnaul to come back to the stage. And I'd like to open up, we have a second mic here that's going to be wandering the floor. And we have our three amazing speakers up here that are willing to answer questions. So if you have a question, if you'll just raise your hand and we'll come over and one of the three panelists will be able to answer your question.
So I can talk about that. So how tied in is the 22 number, which, could be 21, could be 19, could be 24, but the suicide rate is among veterans, how tied in is NAMI in that initiative and addressing that? Which I know they are. I kind of already know my own answer here.
So I'm on the NAMI board, my name is Esther. I am also at the VA. I am the suicide prevention coordinators there. And so I would say that we work hand in hand to try and reach as many people as we possibly can, and really make sure that people are aware of those resources and how to access those resources.
I'd also like to add that we do have a NAMI program called Homefront, and Tara Gwynn and her husband Tim are two of the facilitators. There's Tara. Hi Tara, give a wave, thank you. And so we do feel that that is definitely an important component to the conversation on mental health. Somebody else have a question?
So I would very much, the VA is very strong in mental health and very strong in having the resources available to people. But a lot of the people that I work with are not so lucky. Co-pays are very high. This is not the fault of the therapist. The co-pays are very high. It doesn't sound very high for a $20 co-pay until you start having to go see a therapist several times a month or even more than once a week. There's also a shortage of therapists that are in the network, and we have a shortage of therapists altogether. So I'm wondering if Wichita State is working on that, if there are plans for bringing more therapists in, and if there is a way that people are looking forward to helping with maybe some of those costs. So kind of a dual question there for Wichita State and Armor.
I'll lightly answer and have someone from Wichita State come up if anyone would like to. I will tell you that in May, we broke ground on the new Biomedical Center, which is a collaboration between KU and WSU. It's not only the largest investment in downtown Wichita, but it's also to help with the healthcare shortage. So it's about talent. So having a corridor where we're focused around healthcare workers and that pipeline is going to be beneficial for not just therapists, but the whole spectrum of healthcare workers in our community. And I know that this is an initiative not just that WSU and KU are collaborating on. WSU Tech is also part of that. WSU Tech and Dr. Sherry Lutash is very much interested in having a much more fast-track route so that we can get some first-level healthcare workers to start getting into our community. So there are initiatives and efforts, and so I would highly encourage you just to keep an eye out on these initiatives that are happening between KU, WSU, and WSU Tech.
I'm also really excited because KU is, they started their child and adolescent psychiatry training program. And so, I mean, they're in their first 2 classes, they'll have 5 child psychiatrists. Now that doesn't guarantee that they stay within the community, but we need the, you know, those arms and great eyes and, you know, and people considering staying in this really amazing community. And I think that has a profound effect. The other thing I was going to say is that often too, we're not often thinking about that the trainees are also getting experience by being available to the community, and often that is a way to get care at a lower cost than it would be for someone who's fully licensed and available in the community. So I think there's so many ways that immediately turns into a win as well, having the resources.
I will add one more thing. So on Friday evening, I attended the fundraiser for HopeNet, which is an organization here in our community that provides therapy services at what you can pay, spectrum. And so some may not be able to pay much, others may be able to pay the full amount, but HopeNet is another resource out there that is available and will help.
So, Dr. Mitnaul, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. As a chronic insomniac that I battle with, and it does affect my depression greatly, is our culture in danger of not enough sleep because of those who insist that too much sleep is just as bad as not enough?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think because I'm a clinician, I'm always aimed at the individual. So I couldn't say, you know, for you in particular, this would be the ideal or not without having a better history. But I do think just awareness and having a better discussion around sleep hygiene. I find that even the young teenagers that I'm meeting, they actually know some of the points that I'm already gonna direct them towards, like, you know, how they use screens, how they manage their time. And, you know, we live in a world in which artificial light dominates, you know, our indoor dwellings, which has its benefits, but also has its implications too, and how it changes our circadian rhythm. And so I think the better that we get at this, and maybe tuning in our world to be a little bit more responsive to the ebbs and flows of how our eyes receive light during the day, I think there's just a lot of room for improvement. So hopefully that's not too broad of an answer, but I think essentially we all need to get better in sync with our biology.
For those of us who may not, who may know someone who has suicidal ideations, but we may not know that they have an underlying or a correlative mental illness, what are some of the signs that they might be having suicidal ideations or that they might be close to it, and how might we respond?
Because sometimes it isn't overt or apparent to us, I think that's why I'm glad that you echoed it, because you can't say it enough, Esther, that if the suspicion is on your heart or on your mind, it doesn't hurt to ask, actually. And I think that's the place to begin. Often when I'm evaluating people, though, young people or even talking to families, one of the early things that I'm looking for is the function of their life different? Meaning that are the things that they enjoy or interested in, you know, starting to become smaller? Is their world looking smaller than it did before? Now, again, all of us, our tastes change. You know, I used to love Captain Crunch, I don't anymore. So there's room for just variation in the way that we live our lives. But I think, especially people that you know well, and you see their life becoming smaller, I think that's a good sign to begin a conversation.
Absolutely. And also them talking about it. Sometimes they will talk about it, other times that they will. And just making sure that if you have any concerns, you just open that door and say, hey, I'm really concerned about this part. Are you doing okay? How are things going? And just being able to be that person that they can have that conversation with and those kinds of things.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming out and speaking today first. But then I had a question, actually, I think mostly for Mayor Lilly Wu about the multi-agency center. And I know that working in mental health, proper nutrition is often goes hand in hand with mental health crises and not ensuring the access to proper nutrition and food with that. So is the multi-agency center going to have either like a food bank or proper classes to teach more about food nutrition and what goes in our body?
Great question. First and foremost, the multi-agency center is a collaboration amongst not just nonprofit organizations, but social services that are already in our community. So I know that there are multiple organizations that work in that sphere right now. Union Rescue Mission, Humankind Ministry, Salvation Army, just to name a few. So when it comes to food, and Dr. Mitnaul, you actually hit it right there, it's what you put in, right? It is very important, critical, whether we're talking about mental health or physical health. What you eat matters. So I'm really grateful that the Lord's Diner has agreed to help us with providing food, both for dinner and lunch. And we're now looking for other partners like the Kansas Food Bank, which I also went to another event this week with the Kansas Food Bank, which just celebrated 40 years. So congratulations to them. So I really would like to have that conversation with Kansas Food Bank if they can provide us with breakfast. And while I'm talking about this subject, I know a lot of churches do a lot of great work in trying to do outreach and want to provide meals. But just like you said, we need to have healthy, nutritious meals. And the Lord's Diner is very conscious about providing healthy, conscious meals. So if we can have those churches, instead of providing their own sandwiches, come and serve at the multi-agency center, be those warm hands that help an individual connect to resources. That's what we will need help with. And so I really encourage, if you have a church that currently does that, once this multi-agency center comes around, please focus your energy towards being a volunteer, towards being those helping hands at the location.
I saw last weekend what the headline in the Wichita Eagle for the weekend was that they're going to start getting rid of these tent cities, these homeless encampments, and I just kind of wondered where are these people going to go if they can't. I mean, is this place going to direct them to shelter, or are we doing anything about shelter for, I saw on TV that in Los Angeles, where they have a lot of homeless people in tent cities, they're getting people off the streets by repurposing like vacant buildings, like buildings that aren't being used. And I didn't know if we were doing anything like that.
So we are repurposing a building. The multi-agency center is repurposing a school that closed. As you know, the city, the county, USD 259, and state legislators are 4 different bodies. I don't deal with classroom curriculum. I work with really the city of Wichita resources and how we can direct those resources. So I'm really grateful that USD 259 decided to sell Park Elementary School to the city of Wichita to repurpose that building for the new multi-agency center. The second thing to that is that starting November 28th, we will start opening an emergency winter shelter. That will continue until March 31st of next year. The idea is that it is the trial run, basically, for the multi-agency center, because it is for the winter months that an emergency winter shelter opens. But the multi-agency center is a 24/7 operation, which means it won't close. And so this is, again, the pre-trial to that very idea of having a 24/7 location. So when it comes to enforcement, we will coordinate in conjunction with the multi-agency center / emergency winter shelter opening. So once the emergency winter shelter opens, there will be space for people to come for sheltering, especially during winter months, and then beyond that, once the MAC opens. So we're trying to balance being compassionate, but also respectful to community as well. And I think that it is a balance. There are resources in our community, and I'm really grateful to the nonprofits that have been working in this space for dozens and dozens of years. But what we've been doing is not working. So we've got to change the model, and the model is this multi-agency center that truly works around collaboration. And so once we have this resource available, again, opens up November 28th, then there will be the other side of that coin, which is enforcement.
Take probably 2 questions, maybe 3. Did you read the question number?
Okay, in another life, another time, I lost a mother-in-law to suicide, a brother-in-law to suicide, and a sister-in-law to suicide. We were told at that time, we were back in the 1960s, there was nothing they could really do unless they voluntarily went forward. A person that really wants to commit suicide, truly wants to, will never say that. In fact, the last words I heard from them was, "Oh, you're such a lovely person, I'm glad you were here." The next day they committed suicide. That was their farewell address. I don't know if we have any social programs out there that can actually work with the parents, get the individual in and incarcerate them. We have to lock them up, whatever it may be, to get them to realize where they are, what the problem is going on, instead of after 5 days you miraculously cure you and dismiss you from the church. Kind of scared about all that. I was encouraged to hear about what you said about the community starting to do something. I hope that's true, but let's get it out to people, and there's a lot of individuals out there that are going to do it.
Absolutely, and what we're doing here is this is how we begin. This is how we get these conversations. This is also how we get all of these resources out and available.
And I would just say to that, I think your vigilance, so both what Laura's talking about, which is the more community conversations that we have to, it becomes okay. I think often, I think you might have heard us both say a little bit of this, that there can be a lot of internal suffering going on in silence. And, I can't speak to the thoughts that they might have had, but it's hard to not think that at some point they felt like, well, maybe even if I voice these concerns, they can't be addressed, or there is no hope, or there aren't great interventions that exist. And so I think one of the ways that we can be light bearers is to remind those around us, even the ones we don't suspect are necessarily struggling with depression or anxiety, to say those things. Hey, I went to this really, wonderful gathering today, and it turns out that there are ways that we can help people through a crisis, and there are even new developments in terms of treatments, from medication to types of therapy to community organizations that are geared towards helping people to find that why and find that verb and find the thing that helps them to feel anchored, loved, and that can help them at least persevere through that crisis, because usually they are just waves. It's not a permanent state. But they have to know that there's hope out there, and you guys are doing that, and I'm sure you're going to carry that forward too.
Hi, my name is Haley Earhart, and I've been suffering domestic violence abuse for the last 2 years. And the last 2 weeks I've been trying to get into shelter, but all the ones in camps are temporarily full currently. And I've still got nowhere safe to go. And if you guys know any resources that can help me out, please let me know.
We'll come talk to you. Thank you so much. Right there.
Hi, this is a bit of an open-ended question here about the talks that we're having about the multi-agency center. I don't know about the facts surrounding the matter, but I have heard that there might be a bit of a shortfall on the budget for the city and us to reach that endeavor. So I was wondering if there would be opportunities to open up for different agencies to participate, and if so, is there an opportunity for like small businesses or donors to kind of have a say so and come in and say like, hey, we would love to add value to what you guys are doing?
Absolutely. So the Multi-Agency Center is going to be a 501c3, a nonprofit where people can donate. In addition to, we want to collaborate with partners. And just this week, we had over 100 individuals come together that wanted to help in some way with the Multi-Agency Center. So again, we know we're not doing this alone. And this is truly a collaborative effort. And it will require everyone having a portion of their hand in helping with this situation. Again, it's a challenge, a community-wide challenge, and it requires all community members to focus their energy even a little bit regarding this challenge. One of the ways is, even if you cannot volunteer, I ask you, because it is very dangerous, as people have been going to major intersections asking for donations or money, it is actually illegal because you would be impeding traffic if the individual sets foot onto, again, the street. And so really, we don't want people to have just spare change. We want people to have real change. And that is the campaign that will follow with the Multi-Agency Center. Real change, not spare change. And so when it comes to the Multi-Agency Center, I just ask all of you to think about how you can be part of that solution too. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the number 988. I know that has not been said tonight, but I know it's a segue from the Multi-Agency Center, but our partners at Sedgwick County 911, Sedgwick County deputies, as well as Wichita Police Department, and our ComCare partners are all part of that solution when it comes to 988. So if you know anyone that needs immediate assistance, 988 is that number when it comes to suicide prevention.
We're making progress on resources and therapy and awareness and removing the stigma, but until we start paying for it, we're not going to move the needle. The insurance companies are allowed to tell me in 10 days I'm well and I need to go home. We still have a major problem.
Thank you.
I'm going to say something real quick. So, mental health parity. The U.S. Department of Labor actually deals with that. NAMI in February, at our February 4th meeting, is going to have Leandra Dobb from the Department of Labor come and talk to us about mental health parity. Her entire job is to talk about situations like that, and in her involvement with NAMI affiliates throughout the state of Kansas, they have opened probably a couple dozen cases, some that have been nationwide cases, and have had insurances pay over several millions of dollars because they are violating the parity laws. So we encourage you to follow us on social media and come to that meeting and
here.
Hi, my name is Sabrina, and I had in the last 4 months tried to commit suicide like 4 times. And I was just wondering, someone said it was okay to talk about it, but when you have family members that don't act like it's okay, what can you do?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you, and then I'll pass this off, is that's actually what NAMI is here for. We don't provide any clinical assistance. We're not therapists, but we're made up of people like you, and we would love to provide some help and hope and wrap our arms around you. And please come see me after. But please understand that that's what NAMI is. I found NAMI through a family member that attempted to take their life. And I found the comfort, the understanding, and the support that I was not able to get from my own family or from the people around me. And so please understand that there are people to help. Come find me at the end.
I think you did a beautiful job. I think that's the neat part, right? The people that you can share a story with, and sometimes we'd like to elect who those people are, but it's not always the people in our immediate family, and so sometimes we are reaching beyond that to find your village. So thank you, Nami, for being here.
Is ComCare going to become part of the organizational structure that you are proposing?
So for the multi-agency center, ComCare, which is part of Sedgwick County, they have already started conversations about how else they can have a presence, whether at or near the multi-agency center. We know that transportation is a barrier to many. And so one of the things about the multi-agency center is that it's really going to be a triage center. So some will need triaging where they need to go to an ER. And so others may need just a quick evaluation. And maybe others, it's just simply they need a couple of nights stay so that they can get their bearings and really connect to some of the nonprofits that are around. So really, the multi-agency center is supposed to be that triage that connects people to the next resource so that they can continue moving along their journey to truly transform their lives. And so ComCare is part of that conversation, but again, it's near.
Within the unit?
So the footprint right now is still being discussed. This location from November 28th to March 31st is simply the emergency winter shelter, so not the multi-agency center. So again, for that time period, it's really a trial run. It's a mini version of the multi-agency center, but it's going to be an operator who will help really take care of the sheltering piece. But it is a 24/7 shelter.
How many caregivers, doctors, will there be though in that situation? Because St. Joe currently has their psych ward, and I understand it's under a task force evaluation to be eliminated.
Again, we need our partners to be part of this. The city of Wichita, I think your question was, the city of Wichita is going to face a budget shortfall. But we have, as a city and a council, decided that we will commit operating dollars for this multi-agency center. And it was announced this week that we will use ARPA dollars, so federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan, to operate this multi-agency for 2 years. But then we need the community to step up, because it can't just be us. And the city of Wichita, again, this is a temporary location for you to then connect to the next resource. And so you can't just put it all on one entity. Everyone will have to be, again, part of that solution. And when you ask me how many doctors or how many clinicians, the number right now is anyone that wants to be part of the solution, please sign up. And again, 100 people showed up to that provider meeting this week.
So they're unpaid positions.
Some will be organizations that donate their caseworker. So if you have a nonprofit that has 10 caseworkers, we may ask you to bring one of your caseworkers and have that caseworker at the location and really connect with the individuals and then go back to your nonprofit. But really, we don't have a solid number because, again, we need this community to step up too.
Question back here, and then there's one more up here, and then we'll move on.
So I'm going to switch gears. I'm just kind of curious about the family support because addiction and substance use tear families apart. And I heard it mentioned that a lot of folks feel like they don't have that connection with family, especially at the point of entry. However, it's still important to treat the family. So I'm just curious how, if that's being looked at and it's being built into this integrated center as well.
I would like to, first of all, mention that NAMI does have a number of support groups as well as educational programs that are specifically focused on families, and we'd love to connect with you on that.
So I would say NAMI, please be at the multi-agency center.
We'll be there.
But in addition to NAMI, is there anything else we can consider? NAMI's great, but a lot of work to do.
I know we're going to step up as an agency here, so we provide psychotherapy and all those services. We have 35 peer support staff, 10 licensed clinicians. We're ready to mobilize. So we want to be a part of it. So if you could reiterate that.
Did you just say breakthrough?
Yes. Breakthrough Club, it's going to be right there.
Yes.
We're one of the people who are going to be near, but not.
So I'll just summarize the two individuals that spoke without a microphone. Again, it will require partnership, collaboration, and we know that we're a partner with Breakthrough Club as you're already in that space and helping a lot of individuals already. And then I don't know which organization you're with. JST also said that they're ready to step up. And so again, this is going to require, this is the Wichita model. So if you've heard of other cities that have done something similar, we're learning from their best practices. But this is the Wichita model. And the Wichita model means that we're going to have to collaborate. And it doesn't matter who gets the credit, we really just want to transform lives. So it shouldn't matter whether XYZ organization helped that individual. They just need to know that at the multi-agency center, they can connect to those resources. So again, we want to be part of that journey for the individuals to connect to the right resource for them. Because as Dr. Mitnaul just mentioned, as a clinician, he has to talk about the individual and what that individual needs. And so we know that there's no one idea of what someone who's facing homelessness looks like. There are multiple different faces and there's multiple different needs. And so they will be unique to that individual. It's really to connect people to resources.
Thank you. Last question?
Actually, JST and Mayor Wu answered it very well.
Wonderful.
Okay, so can I be the last question?
Absolutely.
I'm going to wear two hats. I'm a paraeducator with Wichita USD 259 for over 8 years. I've worked at numerous behavior schools, so this is kind of for you, Doctor. I worked at Levy Special Education Center, and currently I'm at Colvin Elementary. I'm sure a lot of you are aware, Wichita was, Department of Justice came in and looked at our numbers and said we had too many children in seclusion, too many restraints. So I'm hoping, I don't know if you can ever come to an in-service, Doctor, but so this is the safety of our children. We have 5-year-olds going off campus because we cannot put them in a safety hole to get them back to school safely. They don't understand, they're autistic, they're nonverbal. They just want to run, it's fun. So there's things going on in our schools that if we can have more training to help, I don't know how long this is going to last again, this is just what we've heard at in-service. So cars are being damaged at other schools by students, again, leaving campus, hurting teachers, hurting other students. It's just, we all had to be trained to take care of these students safely so they wouldn't hurt themselves or others. And that's a big problem. So I was hoping that we have wonderful in-services, maybe you could help us with that. And then also I came here, I attended a wonderful group. My facilitator is Jim, it's called Survivor of Suicide. We meet every Monday at River Walk Church every Monday. What is it? River Walk Church down by Exploration Place. And he's an amazing man. I lost my father, it'll be 13 years, December 28th. He took his own life. And my mother died 4 months later of cancer. And not only did I lose my parents, but I lost my career as a mortician. I'm from Iowa, I was in Seattle at the time. I lost my job, I lost my parents, I lost a lot. But I'm doing better with this group and lots of counseling, and now I became a paraeducator instead of being a mortician. I'm not saying I may not become a mortician again, my husband still is a mortician. But his reasoning was, he was bipolar with lots of pain from rheumatoid arthritis, and this was his third attempt, and he knew my mother was dying. So December 28th, he took his own life, and then I buried my mom 4 months later. So it's pretty hard. But this has been great. I really appreciate it. All of the talks have been amazing. No one can, when I would tell my story, nobody could even imagine what I've been through, and I would say, you don't want to imagine what I've been through. But with our wonderful group and everybody having their own losses and understanding what we've been through, this has been great. So thank you for putting this on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate all your questions and comments. And now I'd like to ask Mayor Wu to begin the candlelight ceremony.
Thank you, Laura. May I please ask Michelle Madison, Trish Klingenberg, Wichita Police Chief Joe Sullivan, and Father Andrew O'Connor to please join me on the stage to begin the candlelight ceremony. The lighting of these 7 candles represents the 7 days of Mental Illness Awareness Week. This week is a time where we talk about and bring awareness to the concerns of people with mental illness and their families. We light the candle of truth to dispel ignorance and misinformation about major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, severe anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder. We light the candle of healing, that troubled minds and hearts, broken lives, and relationships might be healed. We light the candle of understanding, that the darkness of stigma, labels, exclusion, and marginalization might be dispelled for the sake of those touched by mental illness. We light the candle of hope for persons and families living with mental illness, for better treatment, for steadier recovery, and for greater opportunity to work and serve. We light the candle of thankfulness for compassionate, dedicated caregivers and mental health professionals, for new discoveries in brain research and better medications. We light the candle of faith to dispel doubt and despair for those who have lost hope and are discouraged. We light.
Here it comes.
We light the candle of steadfast love. Love, to remind us that we are all people of value and worth, and to remind us to share the light of love and of service to others living with mental illness. Now, I would like to invite all of you to light your candles. Thank you for taking part in the candle lighting ceremony. To conclude our candlelight ceremony, I ask Father Andrew O'Connor from St. Francis Ministries, who will share a few words. Father O'Connor serves as the Executive Officer for Mission and Ministry at St. Francis Ministries. He is renowned for his dedication to pastoral care, community engagement, and fostering relationships with various faith groups. His tenure at St. Francis Ministries is marked by compassionate leadership and a deep commitment to the spiritual well-being of both staff and clients. Prior to joining St. Francis, Father O'Connor was the rector at Good Shepherd Episcopal Church in Wichita for nearly 14 years and played a pivotal role in the Diocese of Kansas, leading significant mission and ministry efforts in the region. Father O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Wu, and thank you for NAMI for welcoming me this evening. I've been asked to offer a word of reflection, and as I have participated in lighting the candles for our candlelight vigil this evening, both the main candles up here, and watch the candles come be lit throughout what I would call the congregation, but throughout the seating this evening, reminded of the experience I had for many years in congregational ministry on Christmas Eve, as we would sing the hymn Silent Night, with the lights turned, not maybe all the way out. We wanted to make sure that people didn't trip and fall as they left church, but the lights dimmed, and instead of electric candles, using actual live fire, which always kind of made me nervous. But to watch that sort of darkened space, that dim space, suddenly a little bit at first come back to life, then to have that light kind of very brightly shining by the end of the hymn was always something that was a deep inspiration. And I think likewise, as we think about and address and speak about issues of mental health and mental illness, opportunities for all of us who participated tonight to be those points of light in our wider Wichita community is both a blessing and a privilege for us to have these conversations and to continue these conversations. Dr. Mitnaul was speaking about what fire can do. I thought a little bit about one of the things that happened when I was raising my kids. I've got 5, aged 13 to 20, so it's not a competition. But once when my wife went out of town, I was in charge of keeping an eye on my kids, and my eldest, who's, like I said, now 20, was probably 9 or 10 years old, and he was interested in fire, such that he lit a match and then dropped it immediately on his foot and set his toe on fire briefly, very, very briefly. One of those exciting moments that you have as a dad when you have to try to figure out how am I going to explain this to my wife and get to the story before the kids tell the story. In any case, that opportunity for us to be hope and healing and light and fire for our community, for those in need, reminds me of something important that a priest and scientist of the 20th century named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin once said, and I want to share that quote with you as part of this moment of reflection. The day will come when, after harnessing space, the winds, the tides, and gravitation, we shall harness for God the energies of love. On that day, for the second time in the history of the world, we shall have discovered fire. We have the opportunity to be fire. We have the opportunity to be light. We have the opportunity to be love. And now, as we conclude our time of reflection, I offer an opportunity to share the names that are born of love for those who are struggling with mental illness, who have struggled with suicide, who are seeking health and wholeness. Now, a quick word of instruction. I'm going to leave a moment of silence. And in that silence, I invite you to offer a name or the names of those who are especially on your mind or on your heart this evening. If I leave that moment of silence and nobody says anything, it will be terribly awkward. So please, whether it's kind of under the breath in a whisper or full-throated, it's an opportunity for you to name those who love.
Bobby Hill, Richard Clark,
Billy Joe Boyer,
Heidi Jane,
Chris Beebe, Eric Morley,
Richard Harris.
Shirley,
Debbie and Cody Comstock.
Esther Granados.
Thank you for sharing your names. And we conclude this time in a word of prayer. Gracious and holy God, look with compassion on all who struggle with their mental health, all those who are challenged by mental illness, those who have lost their health and their freedom. Restore to them and to us the assurance, your unfailing mercy. Remove from them the fears and challenges and barriers that beset them. Strengthen them and us, our community, to work for their recovery and return to wholeness. And to all those who care for them, for us, with patience and understanding, persevering love. Amen.
Thank you to my very favorite Reverend O'Connor. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight as we gather to shine a light on mental illness. Your presence is a powerful statement that we are united in supporting those affected by mental illness and mental health conditions. I'd like to extend my greatest gratitude to Mayor Wu and Dr. Mitnaul for their insightful and inspiring words tonight. And of course, Father O'Connor, thank you very much. We're so grateful for WPD Sullivan to be out here and all our state officials. We appreciate your ongoing support for mental health initiatives. To all the community resources that are present here, thank you for setting up booths and providing essential information to those in need. Your services are invaluable to our community, and we will continue to do all we can to share the resources that we have from you all. To our volunteers, thank you for making this event possible. Your time and effort do not go unnoticed. If you are a NAMI volunteer, would you please stand? For all the effort that you have all put into this. NAMI Wichita and our board of directors are all volunteers. So I'd like to point out that this is passion. This is what fuels and what drives us in NAMI Wichita. Events like this and making connections, education, and advocacy. I'd also like to thank everybody who attended. I'm so appreciative that you showed up. You are part of the solution. Please always remember that. Each of you plays a role in reducing stigma and in advocating for mental health awareness. I'd like to also let you know that if you're interested in getting more involved with NAMI, whether it's volunteering, attending a NAMI program, making a donation, or becoming a member, please do visit our booth, which is right over there. Say hi, Treva and Vicki. Thank you, ladies. NAMI does offer a variety of programs, including peer support, educational courses like Family to Family, and we also have a resource hour called Ask the Doctor, where we have third-year residents from the KU Medical School present and available to answer any questions that you might have. Whether you're seeking support, educational resources, or advocacy, NAMI Wichita is here for you. And finally, as we leave here tonight, I want to leave this last thought with you. We cannot fight these battles alone. The simple act of showing up, whether here tonight or in your everyday life, means everything. It means everything to the one person who is holding on to that last thread. When we stand together as a community, when we become a source of hope and strength for one another, let tonight be a reminder that even in the dark, there is light, and we can find each other in that light. Thank you for being part of this movement. Together we can break the silence and bring hope to those who need it most. Thank you again. I appreciate you all coming out. Feel free to leave your candle at the table as you exit, and we're so grateful for you being here this evening. Thank you and good night.